But let's move on to the Golden State Warriors, which
Do we
I
have to?
thought was another difficult one because of the age of the roster. I thought about Juan Toscano-Anderson because he's awesome and super fun, and I just don't know the extent to which the NBA watching world knows about him. But I think almost out of necessity, Jordan Poole should be the choice here. I think it's telling that the Warriors didn't opt to add any proven guard depth because that's a vote of confidence in his direction, even if I don't agree with said vote of confidence. I'm still not sold on Jordan Poole being anything better than like a usable backup, but I think that the role he's going to have to fill for this Golden State team means that he is going to average significantly bigger numbers. I promise I was not paid to say this by our friend and friend of the podcast, Jacob Bourne.
Well, or sections of Warriors Twitter that went after me because when I made fun of look, these are the facts.
I'm not saying he should break out.
No,
I'm saying that he might out of necessity because the front office has confidence in him.
That is my problem. The fact that Jordan Poole is this breakout necessity.
Right.
Last year, he showed a lot. I would even say at both ends of the floor. You look at the second half of the season, what he was doing as a finisher around the rim, shooting fairly well from three. My issue is, you're the Warriors. You watched your team rank in the third percentile of offensive efficiency when Stephen Curry was off the court. You responded to that lack of secondary shot creation by acquiring zero secondary shot creation over the offseason. That is mind-melting to me. And people responded when I pointed that out saying Jordan Poole is literally secondary shot creation.
Dan, you have to remember that you have to take the ownership's bank accounts into account.
Fuck the ownership.
Like, you need to be more sympathetic towards these billionaires, man.
And look, part of me is like, who else were they supposed to get? If they weren't going to get Patty Mills, they weren't going to get anyone who was eons better. But I would just like to point out that I want to know what's going to change throughout all this. The Warriors, when Jordan Poole played without Stephen Curry last year, 102.3 offensive rating. That is in the 6th percentile. That's no offense to Jordan Poole. I don't trust him. If you want him, he's their backup point guard right now. So you're right. I think he has to break out. I think he has the potential to break out. But the fact that they're in a situation, even with Clay coming back, where you need Jordan Poole to break out, unless Jonathan Kuminga is going to be great from day one, which I'd argue he's not going to be as a creator, that's a precarious position to be in. My pick is Juan Toscano-Anderson, as I think one of the foremost drivers of the Juan Toscano-Anderson bandwagon. I might be higher on him than Warriors fans are. I think I've seen a lot of criticism about this isn't someone who's going to shoot in volume, but he does a lot of like offensive stuff efficiently, and there's a variety of it. Yes, you'd like to see him shoot more threes, but he shot basically, I think he was at 39% last year. Maybe he was at over 40%. Can't remember at the moment. 40.2%. He only took 92 of them. I get it. But he also was in the 70th percentile of efficiency on cuts. He could just be used in a lot of different ways. I do think he's sort of, and they have Otto Porter now to help do this, maybe with some of the lineups, depending on where Moses Moody plays or with Andre Iguodala. I don't know how they're going to work those minutes, but he seems like the guy to put at the 4 right now when you're going to have Draymond Green at the 5. And the Warriors #annihilated opponents when JTA played the 4 with Draymond Green at the 5. He can cover a lot of different ground defensively. And I looked this up on Basketball Index. There were 250 plus players who logged at least 1,000 minutes last season. Juan Toscano-Anderson ranked 13th in their positional versatility metric on defense. Now, versatility does not inform effectiveness, but I actually think he is pretty effective to the degree of you can play Juan Toscano-Anderson at the 4 and Draymond Green at the 5, and your defense can still be functional. You're not, because you're giving up all this size elsewhere. You're not going to help Draymond Green with the wear and tear. Ideally, he would play with someone maybe like a Paul Millsap who can guard some of the 5s so that Draymond can do more Draymond things. Maybe that's why they might favor Otto Porter, because they view him as that type of just burlier body where JTA is more just slender. I think they still need him to be a pretty important player. He's also a risk, though, because I don't know what his role is on this team following the additions of Andre Iguodala, Moses Moody, who I think is, when you look at Golden State's 3 primary youngsters, Moses Moody, Jonathan Kuminga, and James Wiseman, I think Moses Moody's probably the most immediately important. Like long-term, it's Kuminga and probably even Wiseman's more important. But who's most likely to help this team next year? Probably Moody. But
Moody,
again,
I think.
Moody, even with Kuminga, you want to throw that in. You had Otto Porter Jr. Clay's going to come back. You got Andre Iguodala. I don't know what they're going to do with Juan Toscano-Anderson. I think he needs to be a fixture in this rotation, and I would like to see him actually play more than the 1,100-ish minutes that he played last year, because I think that's a really good, smart, fundamentally sound basketball player.
Did you give any consideration to James Weissman here? Because I will admit that I did not.
He's coming off the torn meniscus, and what does that do? He couldn't participate in summer league, obviously. How much has he been allowed to work out over the offseason? How much can he do once training camp opens up? And I still just come back to the fact that forget about the Warriors' willingness to run pick and roll with him. If you have James Wiseman on your team, run more motherfucking pick and rolls. But when Draymond Green is on the court, I just don't see how it works between them offensively. And I do think Draymond Green might be important to helping Wiseman defensively. And so I'm not trying to crap all over Draymond Green, but just I don't understand how it works. And then, like, if you ever have Draymond and Andre Iguodala on the court at the same time, you can't have James Wiseman as a part of those lineups. It just can't happen.
I very much think Weissman could still turn into an all-star down the road. It's not going to happen with this team construction. If that happens, it's because he continues to develop and the Warriors have moved on from the Steph, Clay, Dre era.
I will say, as someone pointed out to me, if you can play Draymond and Kevon Looney together, why can't Wiseman and Draymond be the same way? I would counter with one, a healthy Kevon Looney is way better defensively than James Wiseman is. And two,
way better hands too.
And two, what are you expecting from Kevon Looney on offense? You're not. There's just no expectation there, really. And James Wiseman is more of a presence. Most of his utility right now is going to come on the offensive end. And so I think that's the difference there.
And the hands.
Yeah, he stone hands, or maybe the basketball's coated in Crisco. I don't know.
Maybe both.